The Stone Zone with legendary Republican strategist and political icon and pundit Roger Stone. Stone has served as a senior campaign aide to 3 Republican presidents. He is a New York Times best-selling author and a longtime friend and advisor of President Donald Trump. As an outspoken libertarian, Stone has appeared on thousands of broadcasts, spoken at countless venues, and lectured before the prestigious Oxford Political Union and the Cambridge Union Society. Due to his 4+ decades in the political and cultural arena, Stone has become a pop culture icon. And now, here's your host, Roger Stone.
Welcome, I'm Roger Stone, and yes, you're back in the Stone Zone. I'm operating solo today because my normal co-host, Troy Smith, well, he's not really normal, is taking the day off and preparing for his own show. But first, this important commercial message. Okay, folks, the countdown is on before the new administration exposes the entire pandemic. Most know that a large sum of the people's health was negatively impacted by global coercion. Whether severe side effects or experiencing long COVID, check out the natural solution formulated by Dr. Peter McCullough in collaboration of the Wellness Company, as they just leveled their original detox formula $30 today. This includes a 3-in-1 Ultimate Spike Detox, conveniently consolidated into one capsule with 4 times more nattokinase, 500 milligrams of bromelain, and 500 milligrams of turmeric root extract, the very best. Nattokinase, pardon me if I misspelled that or mispronounced it, is an enzyme researched for its anti-clotting effects, may work to break down the spike proteins. Combined with bromelain and curcumin, it provides a potent blend for detoxification and cellular support. Crafted with 100% natural ingredients, Ultimate Spike Detox is backed by research, offering effective support for your cell's natural repair and recovery. Experience the only formula approved and used by Dr. McCullough, a top freedom-fighting doctor who risked it all to tell the truth about the pandemic. Head to twchealth.com/rstone and use code rstone to get $30 off plus free shipping. Again, that's it. And remember, use code rstone to get $30 off this very important and potentially immensely beneficial product. Now, let's go back to that pro-COVID feeling of safety and security. Today, we're going to talk about the release of the January 6th detainees. Unfortunately, not all of them have been released, or all of them released from the tribulation of a trial in the rigged DC judicial system. Joining me now, Isabella DeLuca, one of my favorite influencers, conservative activists, one of the most beautiful women, both inside and out here on the internet. Isabella DeLuca joins me now.
Thank you so much, Roger, for having me.
Isabella, your story is one of many, but I want you to lay it out for us. You were one of those who was informed very late in the process that you were going to be prosecuted for your actions on January 6th. Tell us what happened.
So in March of 2024, I was approached by 7 FBI agents. I was arrested. I was put in the back of an unmarked vehicle. I was brought down to the Orange County Police Station where I was mugshotted, fingerprinted, and then put in a jail, handcuffed, shackled, put in a jail cell before I saw a judge. But yeah, my arrest came super late. If you read the statement of facts from the FBI knew of me being there the day after January 6th. So why they waited all this time to arrest me, I have no idea.
And what exactly is it that you did that they claimed broke the law?
So they're kind of charging me with what they're charging the rest of the J6ers, which is the blanket trespassing, some of us obstruction, but the other charge that they got me on was theft of government property. I was an in an unoccupied meeting room for about 2 minutes, and I touched a table, and the government came to me and said that I stole the table.
Geez, getting a table out of the Capitol all by yourself, how would that have even been possible?
I'm 5'1" and 122 pounds, so I'm still trying to figure out that myself. When I was questioned by the FBI, one of the first things that I said was, "I'm being charged with theft of government property." And they responded that, "Yep, you stole a table from the Capitol." And there wasn't much, reasoning outside of that. But I don't have the table with me, and I don't have the capacity to carry a table. So I'm still trying to figure that out.
I think the narrative they tried to create here had to do with the election, and they wanted to go arrest and charge as many people as possible in the run up to the election. There were over 600 individual people who received word only late that they were going to be prosecuted. Virtually every one of them involved for nonviolent infractions. Uh, do you think the American people have figured out what really happened on January 6th?
Yeah, I think people are sick and tired of it. I mean, there was definitely federal agents that were there. You had the unselect corrupt January 6th committee that was investigating this, that was tampering with evidence, editing out videos, and leaving out evidence. And so I'm really hoping that the Trump administration, despite the pardoning of the J6 committee, that this is something that they seriously look into.
I think, increasingly confident that Speaker Johnson, I believe yesterday I read that he had appointed a committee to look into the January 6th committee investigation. Now, it's unclear how many records are left because, well, they destroyed the records on their way out. I know firsthand why this is true. In my case, it was absolutely clear that Liz Cheney went around the lawyer of witness Cassidy Hutchinson, who had worked for Mark Meadows, to get her to say in her testimony that the president had instructed Meadows to call me and General Michael Flynn on January 5th to determine what would happen on January 6th. I can tell you firsthand, there never was any such phone call. I've never talked to Mark Meadows in my life, not by phone, not by text, not by encrypted message. I think I met him once in a green room back when he was a congressman. Then Cassidy Hutchinson further perjured herself when she said that Meadows was supposed to go to a war room in the Willard Hotel for a meeting, but she had dissuaded him from doing so, but that he later called Stone and Flynn for a download on the meeting. That didn't happen either. Our cell phone records easily available to the government, whether you like that or not. I've never talked to Mark Meadows, and as it turns out, either has General Flynn. Then there's their videos, the videos where the audio track is mostly created using AI and they match it to visuals. But in this case, the videos that regarded me that they showed on national television during their committee are completely different from the videos with the same audio track that they leaked to CNN the day before. This whole thing is a kabuki circus, a made for television special. I think it's important that Speaker Johnson get to the bottom of exactly what happened, and that whether it's Zoe Lofgren, if you could sober her up, Adam Schiff, or Liz Cheney, and the other members of the Unselect Committee uh, are haven't been pardoned. I think at a minimum, those who are attorneys should be disbarred. I mean, just the act of going around Cassidy Hutchinson's lawyer to coach her on false testimony, that should be a disbarable offense, don't you think?
Listen, I completely agree. I mean, the entire process from what you just described up into the January 6th defendants and their jurors, everything has been corrupt and evil. And I think it goes to show us how rotten to its core these bureaucrats in DC actually are. I don't think people realize the full scope of how bad it actually is. Dinesh D'Souza came out with a great film called Police State, and it really went over these underlying themes that you're talking about, and it's horrible. I just got off the phone with Newsweek before. The government came to me with a plea deal the day before the election, saying that if I pled guilty to stealing a table, so literally the one thing I didn't do, that carried a fine of $100,000 and a year in prison, that they would drop the trespassing charges. And so that combined with the fact that the trial judges are all liberals in DC, the jurors in DC, 94% of residents in DC voted for Kamala Harris. So those were my choices. That's what I was up against, and it's just evil.
Yeah, it is one of the great questions here, which is many Americans, many supporters of the president believe that those responsible for the Russian collusion hoax, that would be the crime of treason on which there's no statute of limitations, or those who fostered the fake Ukrainian impeachment upon us, or those responsible for January 6th should be investigated, the evidence brought before a grand jury, and they should be charged. But then they would go to trial in the District of Columbia. In the District of Columbia, I don't believe there is one federal judge who is not politically biased or fair. And I know firsthand it's impossible to get an unbiased and fair jury. So this whole idea that Trump is going to pursue retribution or revenge is an absurdity. I'm anxious to see who the new U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia is. By the way, there's no provision in law for that position. But I think it's important that the president appoints somebody who would then have access to all of the records on January 6th. In a general sense, let me ask you, Isabella, how do you think the president's doing so far?
I think he's doing amazing. I mean, I was talking with my lawyer, Anthony Sabatini, who's been great throughout this entire process. I think many of us were expecting J6 pardons. We weren't expecting them so soon. So it's been really great to see the president keeping the promises that he made from the very beginning and doing them on day one.
The president has kept important promises, not only to the January 6th victims, but also the great news that he pardoned Ross Ulbricht, the inventor of Silk Road, as he pledged he would do when he spoke to the Libertarian National Convention. I now realize, Isabella, an enormous mistake that I have made. In the past, you have been on my international best and worst dressed list. You were on, I believe, the year before last. And I now realize you should have been on last year's list, but this I can tell you, you will definitely be on next year's list.
I'll take it.
God bless you. Thank you for joining us today in the Stone Zone. God bless you, and I'm glad that this nightmare is over for you.
Thank you so much, Roger. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Folks, I want to now focus on the case of Master Sergeant Jeremy Brown, a Special Forces veteran. Jeremy Brown is a retired U.S. Army Special Forces Master Sergeant who took his oath in 1992 and served this nation honorably for 20 years. He joined the Oath Keepers in the fall of 2020 and was soon approached by members of the Tampa Department of Homeland Security prior to January 6, 2021, to become an informant. He legally recorded the meeting and turned the agents down, refusing their offer. He went to DC for the Save America rally at the Ellipse and was to provide security for speakers there as planned. These were legally permitted rallies at the Capitol, permits approved by the U.S. Park Service. His mission included providing security for the relatives of one of the speakers at the permitted rally site. He never crossed any area closed signage. He broke nothing, committed no violence. He was not in the group that entered the building. He actually saved a woman from being trampled after she was pushed to the ground by police. and he was forced to the ground by police as they forcibly shoved people backwards to clear a terrace. Around March of 2021, he published the attempted recruitment audio, knowing that there had been a plot of some sort against President Trump and the Oath Keepers. At the end of September 2021, he was arrested and his residence was searched under an illegal search warrant signed by a DC magistrate for 2 misdemeanor charges using the out of jurisdiction pretext of terrorism. This was because a January 6th cooperating witness had presented false hearsay evidence to the FBI from January 2021, meaning it was legally stale and uncorroborated. This witness said that another Oath Keeper claimed that Jeremy might have had explosives in his van when he drove to Virginia or Maryland. This was false. The FBI warrant application deliberately bypassed the Florida magistrate. There were 2 guns found in the search that came from his deceased brother. These guns were unregistered heirlooms that had short barrels that would normally only be charged as a misdemeanor, if at all, under the IRS tax section of the U.S. Code. Jeremy Brown never used those rifles in any crime, never transported them across any state lines. It was for mere possession of stored items that he was charged. He was also convicted for 2 old fragmentation grenades and a CD allegedly with classified something that neither he nor his girlfriend had ever seen. This was before they were found by the ATF and FBI searches in her RV that was parked in the cul-de-sac outside of his home. The 2 grenades had DNA fingerprints on them, fibers and hairs that did not match Jeremy, his RV, his residence, or his dogs, yet he was convicted. Now, you would think, of course, that Jeremy Brown is now a free man, and indeed his family and his girlfriend, as well as his attorney, thought that he would be, but it didn't work out that way. Joining us now, Jeremy Brown's attorney, Carol Stewart, and his girlfriend, Tylene Aldridge. And I think we may have also with us Jeremy Brown's mother, as I understand it. Welcome to the Stone Zone under these difficult circumstances, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have laid out for our audience the background on Jeremy Brown. As you know, this is a case I've been following for some time. And I was elated when I heard about the pardons because, in my opinion, this pardon should have applied to veteran Jeremy Brown. His conviction is 100% January 6th related, as required by the presidential proclamation. He should have been freed. He was arrested and imprisoned based on January 6th allegations that led to a pretextual search warrant. I know that you ladies went to the jail to anticipate his release, but it didn't go down that way. Carol, let's go to you first. Legally, what is the government trying to do here? What's their argument?
Well, yeah, Roger, I'm not sure there is an argument, as opposed to within the Department of Justice, the right hand and left hand not talking. So the U.S. Marshals, when Jeremy's supposed to be released, they look and all they see is, oh, he has a conviction in Florida. So his case is dismissed in D.C., should have been let out, January 6th. They say, oh, he has a conviction in Florida, so he's got to go back to Florida in prison. Well, in the DOJ, and this is outside and above Ed Martin in the DC U.S. Attorney's Office, higher than him has to say, Jeremy Brown, no, that case in Florida totally arose from a J6 warrant that was facially illegitimate, unconstitutional. We can talk later about planting evidence, but the right and left hand aren't talking. And that's what we need to happen right now is higher up in the DOJ needs to direct the 11th Circuit to do what the DC Circuit has done. So whether that comes from the fabulous attorneys on Trump's team to the highest levels in the DOJ right now. I don't even know who's acting at some of those levels, but that's what needs to happen. And the marshals are just doing what they do. And I've talked to them, and they see something and they say, we've got to execute this. And there's nobody there to argue with. So that's the big mess we're in right now. And it should be something easily cleaned up. Jeremy Brown falls under President Trump's proclamation pardon. That is true.
I should mention, folks, that Caroline Stewart is doing this case pro bono. She is volunteered her legal services and her able counsel. She has taken not a penny for this representation, which I think is extraordinarily noble of you. You are a true patriot, and God bless you for that. Let's go to Tylene and Jeremy's mother. I can't even imagine how crushing it must have been to go to the jail, expecting Jeremy's release, to be told that no, he won't be getting out today. Tylene,
Yeah.
why don't you start?
It was horrible. His mom and I had driven there. I left her parked in the truck. I sat outside in the freezing cold for approximately 2 hours in anticipation of him coming out. And I didn't even feel how cold I was because I was so excited to greet him. And unfortunately, he called me and let me know that it was a mistake and he would not be coming out. And it was horrible. He called his mom too and told her, how did you feel, Mama?
I was heartbroken. We did all this to get up here and get him out. And then all of a sudden they say he's coming out. And then we he calls and go, oh, well, they made a mistake and I'm not getting out. And it just broke my heart. I don't know. It's just hard to.
Yeah, it's tough, but we're hoping we're going to see him soon.
You know, I think what this is really about is the fact that he exposed and embarrassed them prior to his arrest and search. He exposed the Tampa Department of Homeland Security and their attempt to recruit him as an informant against the Oath Keepers, an offer that he refused. The search warrant was signed in DC, out of jurisdiction, for a search in Florida, without any probable cause, under the false pretense of terrorism. Have you reached out to Governor Ron DeSantis, Carol?
No, other than posting on social media and writing in my letters here that he ought to be outraged. Actually, way back, we did reach out to Moody, who was the AG, and we couldn't get past gatekeepers. I did a writing and went in for what was on in the Tampa court about this whole thing. And they now, I think, there's his former attorney, I won't get into that in the Tampa case, what went down, but Governor DeSantis ought to be outraged that they bypassed him and the law under the federal rules of criminal procedure and had snuck this search warrant into a DC magistrate to conduct a search in Florida under a search warrant that had no probable cause, and it listed no items to be seized, but it had a picture of the RV as if they knew ahead of time where they were going to plant evidence. So this whole thing was a setup, but other than him closing down all the facilities and saying that the Tampa JTTF facilities to you, get out of my state, I'm not sure what he can do. This is now a federal issue. Again, the 11th Circuit, the case has not been argued yet, where this illegitimate search warrant that was, again, everything after this is fruit of the poisonous tree with planted evidence. I'm 100% convinced, Roger.
That seems to be the case. I mean, magically, after the ATF, the FBI, and DHS searched, the items suddenly appear in Tylene's RV that have been parked in the cul-de-sac. he said the items in the RV, grenades in a CD allegedly with unidentified classified information, was a formatted shell document. And the forensics show that Jeremy himself never touched these items. This is what is known as a legal dirty trick. Forensics show that prints, DNA, hairs, and fibers were not Jeremy's, not from the residence or the RVs or his dogs. There's no indication the FBI or lab ever checked any of their databases or any agency to verify any of this. This seems to me just to be spite, nothing less than spite. They're angry about the fact that President Trump has freed the January 6 victims, and they're taking it out on this decorated veteran who served his country honorably. I don't think we can let this stand. I've been in touch with President Trump's staff and with the president about this case. I think the most important thing people can do today is to flood the president with information. He needs to know this is happening because only his Justice Department can now step in and fix this. What plans do you have coming up? I realize that this has hit you like a ton of bricks, and this is a very difficult time. But again, I'm going to go to Tylene and Jeremy's mother. I think it's vitally important that you speak out. In fact, I would like you to join me, all of you, on my 77 WABC radio show this Sunday live. There'll be about 2 million people listening, but they need to know about this case, and we need to give them an action item. We need to tell them how to let the president know that this travesty is going on. Let's go back to Carol for a moment. Carol, what I know this is overwhelming, and you have other clients that you have to serve, but what are your immediate plans?
Well, so I've kind of gotten through everything I can with the U.S. Marshal Service. We are with them, and there's no decision maker there until the White House, or again, Trump's fabulous legal team, were to call the head of the U.S. Marshals and say, stop him, he's in transit. They won't even tell us where. That's a security thing, they don't tell you, but release him. He falls under the pardon release.
I can't hear.
And again, I'm trying to make my way through to get somebody in the J who will talk to the 11th Circuit. We need to get your conviction overturned. So defend, we're tracking that their January 6 results are occurring.
All right. I think we're going to leave it there. We'll talk to you ladies, hopefully this Sunday by radio. In the meantime, I stand ready to help you in any way possible. I've already communicated, as I said, with the White House staff and with the president to bring their attention to this. As you might imagine, they're totally and completely overwhelmed with their own agenda on the early days. But in America, we don't leave our wounded on the battlefield. We cannot let this unjust act stand. This is the result of a clever, dirty trick out of the DC U.S. Attorney's Office. I promise you, ladies, I am not going to forget this. I'm not going to drop it. I'm not going to stop talking about it. We are going to continue to work to free Jeremy Brown. He is a patriot. He's done absolutely nothing wrong. He is being tortured. I understand they moved him at 5:15 a.m. this morning. Do we even know where, Carol, do we even know where they took him?
No, and the marshals, I'm gonna email them. That's part of, because we don't know if they're taking them to Philly. We don't know if they're gonna take them out to their place in Grady, Oklahoma, or if they're going to take him somewhere in Florida. So that's they won't tell us right now. We don't know. He's basically, I call it abducted right now. Nobody knows where he is.
This is it's heartbreaking. Okay, Tylene, Jeremy's mom, final thoughts on your part.
Well, we just want to get the word out there, and thank you for helping us get his message out there. I think we have a lot of channels right now. A lot of people are learning about his case, and we feel confident that we have the right people talking to the right people, and we hope to see him out really soon. Go ahead, Shasha.
Well, let me say this. I said it before on the show.
Okay, yeah, it should not be forgotten.
I apologize for some of our audio issues this morning. Let me say this to the folks who are watching and listening. There is enormous power in prayer. I have experienced 5 miracles in my own life in a very short period of time. I've been through the DC judicial meat grinder, where judges and jurors and prosecutors are politically biased and hateful. And I can tell you in DC, the Constitution, the law, the rules, the evidence, the precedents, none of these things matter because it is run on a politically motivated basis. But the most important thing that all of our listeners and viewers can do right now is to pray for justice for Jeremy Brown. Prayer has enormous power, more power than any lawyer, more power than any court. I am living proof that Jesus Christ can do anything. The fact that I'm even here, the fact that I'm even alive, because they wanted to give me 9 years in prison when I did absolutely nothing wrong. And the judge in my case disallowed any possible defense. Every single one of the judge's pretrial rulings against my lawyers were unconstitutional. But they figured that I would be incarcerated. I'd never be able to raise the money for an appeal. And by the time I got to an appeal, well, at 68 years old and with a lifetime history of asthma, we would never have lived long enough to see an appeal. Ladies, I thank you for joining us. God bless you. Never, ever give up the fight. We will be here for you and for Jeremy.
Thank you. God bless
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Zone.
God bless you. All right. We just brought you the attorney, Carol Stewart, for Jeremy Brown, his mother, and his girlfriend, Tylene. We're going to continue talking about this case until we get justice. It is really outrageous what they're doing. I'll be working on this the better part of the day to try to make sure that people in the new administration know what is going on. A very exciting news yesterday. President Trump yet again reaffirmed his intention to release all of the documents pertaining to the pertaining to the Kennedy assassination. Now, watching the online commentary, some folks have said, well, he said that last time, but he didn't do it. The president, in an incredible interview with Sean Hannity last night, admitted what he told me privately. I think he also told Judge Andrew Napolitano this, that the release of all of the still classified JFK assassination related documents was stopped by CIA Director Mike Pompeo. That Pompeo convinced the president that the methods and sources of the Kennedy assassination activities of the government would be exposed were they to release those documents. I, at this point, believe that the full release of the documents is coming. I hope that President Trump keeps his pledge to appoint a commission that will investigate not just the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, but also the assassination Senator Robert Kennedy while he was running for president, Dr. Martin Luther King, because in that particular case, the King family brought a civil suit against the FBI, against the federal government, against the Memphis police, and they actually won that lawsuit, which means that a judge has ruled that the government was culpable in the death of Dr. King. Then we need an investigation into the attempted assassination of President Ronald Reagan. And then, last but not least, quite obviously, it is very clear that the last administration has not told us everything they know about the two attempts on President Donald Trump's life, the one in Butler, Pennsylvania. That one is particularly vexing because we now know for certainty that the Secret Service, the state police, and the local police were all aware of the fact that there was a gunman with a gun inside the perimeter for 92 minutes. He'd actually been seen with a rangefinder, yet President Trump's detail was not informed. Under the normal Secret Service procedures, the president should have been evacuated from the site the instant they knew there was a man inside the perimeter with a gun, but that didn't happen. Now we learn that the Secret Service, the state police, and the local police were all on different radio frequencies and could not communicate with each other. That seems rather strange. We also know that the local police offered on multiple occasions to conduct a drone surveillance of the entire area, including the perimeter, the essentially closed perimeter where the president was speaking. But on two occasions, the Secret Service told the local police that their drone surveillance would be unnecessary, that they would conduct drone surveillance of the perimeter. Then, when they tried to do so, well, they seemed to be unfamiliar with the drone technology that the Secret Service uses. They actually had to call the 800 service number to try to figure out how the drone technology worked, that number provided by the manufacturer. The American people need more answers. Then add to this the fact that we've seen still photographs of the man that they say is the shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks, on a telephone, but they can't tell us who he was talking to. The FBI and the CIA, the FBI and the Secret Service expect us to believe that they can't break the encryption on his phone. Additionally, Apple has refused to turn over to the government his cloud records, saying it would be an invasion of the late Thomas Matthew Crooks' privacy. They said the same thing about the San Bernardino killer. Yet, when I was under investigation, Apple happily turned over all of my records to Robert Mueller and his thugs without a subpoena. What did they find? Nothing. They found no evidence of Russian collusion, WikiLeaks collaboration, or for that matter, any other crime. It amazes me that we continue to have few answers. Now you look at the assassination attempt in West Palm Beach. This is the one by a man named Ryan Routh. Routh, we're told, is indigent. He's behind in his rent or his mortgage payments. He is behind in his alimony payments to his ex-wife. He is unemployed. Yet somehow he has the money to post an online website recruiting, I guess I would say, soldiers to go to Ukraine and fight. He is visiting various European capitals. And then there's the question of how he even got to Florida. I mean, he's not on a secret TSA domestic terrorist watch list like Tulsi Gabbard. We're told that he flew first to North Carolina and then from North Carolina to Florida. How did he obtain a weapon? He is caught with a weapon where the serial numbers have been filed off. We still don't know when his trial will be. The government moved to postpone his trial indefinitely, saying that the evidence against him was so overwhelming that they didn't have time to go through all of it. We have to hope that Pam Bondi, when she becomes Attorney General, will open an active investigation with a reinvigorated and cleaned up FBI under Kash Patel in order to get to the bottom of both of these. It is very interesting. Javier Milei, who I had the opportunity to meet at the inauguration, did it again, essentially telling the World Economic Forum where they could go. Let's run that.
Promueve la agenda LGBT, queriendo imponernos que las mujeres son hombres y los hombres son mujeres solo si así se autoperciben. Y nada dicen de cuando un hombre se disfraza de mujer y mata a su rival en un ring de boxeo, o cuando un preso alega ser mujer y termina violando a cuanta mujer se le cruce por delante en la prisión. Sin ir más lejos, hace pocas semanas fue noticia en todo el mundo el caso de 2 americanos homosexuales que enarbolando la bandera de la diversidad sexual y fueron condenados a 100 años de prisión por abusar y filmar a sus hijos adoptivos durante más de 2 años. Quiero ser claro que cuando digo abusos no es un eufemismo, porque en sus versiones más extremas la ideología de género constituye lisa y llanamente abuso infantil. Son pedófilos. Por lo tanto, quiero saber quién avala esos comportamientos.
I had the opportunity to meet President Milei in Washington during the inauguration. You know, I really feel privileged. It's very rare in life that one gets to meet one's heroes. Obviously, I worked for President Richard Nixon, who gave me my start in politics, one of my heroes. I worked in 3 presidential campaigns for Ronald Reagan, another of my heroes. Obviously, I've had the privilege to know and work with President Donald Trump for 45 years, yet, pardon me, another of my heroes. And now I have met the lion himself, Javier Milei. It's interesting that when Donald Trump became president in 2017, the mainstream media and their allies on the left told us that our economy would collapse, that the stock market would crash, that Trump would blunder his way into World War III. Of course, none of those things happened. In fact, he gave us a record boom economy. He brought unemployment levels among all Americans to their lowest point ever up to that point. Black Americans, white Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, young Americans, old Americans, urban, rural. He brought billions of dollars back into the United States to be invested here, to create jobs and opportunity here. He brought tens of thousands of troops back from the Middle East, but you didn't hear much about it. Well, that's because the countries they were being removed from did not collapse into the hands of the enemy, because we used the drone technology that U.S. taxpayers spent a lot of money on to keep our enemies pinned down. Not so in Afghanistan. So I've had a chance to meet my heroes, but now I have met yet another one, Javier Milei. President Trump put the globalists on notice that we're going to be putting America first again, that it's a new day in America. Let's roll that.
I have promised to eliminate 10 old regulations for every new regulation, which will soon put many thousands of dollars back in the pockets of American families. To further unleash our economy, our majorities in the House and Senate, which we also took along with the presidency, are going to pass the largest tax cut in American history, including massive tax cuts for workers and family, and big tax cuts for domestic producers and manufacturers. And we're working with the Democrats on getting an extension of the original Trump tax cuts. As you probably know, by just reading any paper. My message to every business in the world is very simple. Come make your product in America, and we will give you among the lowest taxes of any nation on earth. We're bringing them down very substantially, even from the original Trump tax cuts. But if you don't make your product in America, which is your prerogative, then very simply you will have to pay a tariff, differing amounts, but a tariff which will direct hundreds of billions of dollars and even trillions of dollars into our treasury to strengthen our economy and pay down debt. Under the Trump administration, there will be no better place on earth to create jobs, build factories, or grow a company than right here in the good old USA.
As you can see, President Trump means business. A record number of executive orders yesterday, wiping out the infrastructure of the DEI ethos of the Biden administration. I must say I've been to 5 presidential inaugurations, the first one in 1969. This one, however, was quite different. By far the very best. There was a spirit of optimism and hope in the air, not just among those attending the inauguration, but when you talked to people in the streets, when you talked to average citizens, it was hard to believe that you were in the District of Columbia. Very different than the DC that I visited when I was put on trial for my life. I now go back and look at the headlines surrounding January 6th, the ones that accused me of being the mastermind, that used largely guilt by association. Roger Stone seen with members of the Oath Keepers. Roger Stone photoed with members of the Proud Boys. Seth Abramson, that little asshole, says, Roger Stone's arrest is imminent. What happened to all of that? Didn't age very well, did it? It is a new day in America. The president and his team are off to an extraordinarily strong start. What impresses me, having worked for 4 presidents, is the preparation that went into the early days of this administration. In other words, their priorities are very clear. Tom Homan moved immediately to begin his efforts to seal the border and to expel, to deport those violent criminals. I think we've got some footage here of the border this morning.
This morning, the first 1,500 U.S. troops are arriving at the southern border as President Donald Trump launches his long-promised crackdown on immigration. The active duty Army soldiers and Marines deployed to address what Trump declared is a national emergency. The Pentagon says the troops include military police units, combat engineers, and intelligence specialists who will aid with detection and monitoring. The military will also help construct new barriers along the border and provide air power for deportations. A senior defense official saying, "This is just the start. We are anticipating many further missions." President.
This is once again the president keeping his pledge. Now, there have been those who have been skeptical about whether it's actually possible to expel this many illegals. In fact, if you look at it historically, President Dwight Eisenhower deported 1.3 million illegals early in his first term. In Tom Homan, a man I know well, the president has selected precisely the right man for the task, and you can bet that this is going to proceed. I'm going to be very interested to see what happens to people like the mayor of Chicago, for example, who says that he will resist any effort to deport illegals. Tom Homan said that he'd be more than happy to arrest the mayor if he obstructs the law. This is happening across the country in woke sanctuary cities and states where local elected officials say that they will not cooperate in the effort to deport illegals. I think Tom Homan will keep his promise, and those who stand in the way of this incredible mandate that was won in the last election really do risk the danger of arrest. I think it is only fitting. I'm also impressed with the performance of the president's nominees on Capitol Hill, but you very clearly see a slowdown in the confirmation of President Trump's nominees. It is interesting how the Democrats are trying to slow roll the nominations of the president's appointees. Over 80,000 people have now signed a petition uh, urging the confirmation of Robert F. Kennedy to be Secretary of Health and Human Services. But we have some major battles coming up. You can see where the resistance is going to come. Uh, I expect some of the president's nominees. We've already seen this in the case of Secretary of State Marco Rubio, overwhelmingly confirmed by the Senate. I don't think there was a single dissenting vote, but then he's a member of the Senate. It will not go so easily for Tulsi Gabbard, who, as head of the Director of National Intelligence, would be at the nexus of all that information. We'll be able to examine, for example, everything that has not been told to the American people about what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. We'll be able to tell people the truth about what's going on in Ukraine. We'll be able to tell the people the truth about what our intelligence agencies have been doing. They will fight Tulsi Gabbard ferociously. Why? Because she's exactly the right person at the right time for that job. Is also true of Kash Patel. The attacks on him by Senator Adam Schiff are beyond the pale. Now, Schiff was one of those who was given a preemptory pardon by Joe Biden. Now, you have to accept a pardon. When I was pardoned, yes, I accepted the pardon. Some said, well, there's proof that Stone is guilty. No, there's proof that Stone knows that he can't get a fair trial in his appeal in the circuit that is the District of Columbia. And therefore, I signed to obtain my freedom. I know that I did nothing wrong. In fact, after a legal battle between BuzzFeed and the Department of Justice, Robert Mueller was forced to release his long hidden, heavily redacted final report. That final report showed that even he could not sugarcoat the fact that he found no evidence of Russian collusion, WikiLeaks collaboration, or any other crime on my part. Do you remember seeing that on CNN? Either do I. Was that reported on MSNBC? No, they seem to have missed that. How about the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the Associated Press? This proves, by the way, that the judge in my case withheld this exculpatory evidence from my attorneys at trial. My attorneys moved to be given the entire Mueller final report, and the judge denied that motion, saying that she would read the report in her chambers and give us the portions of the report that were relevant, that I would be entitled to under the law for my defense. Somehow she managed to miss the part where Mueller admitted that he had no evidence of Russian collusion, could not, as he put it, there were factual barriers. That means there were no facts. And he admitted that even if he had found that I had received materials from WikiLeaks, which I hadn't, that he didn't believe it constituted a crime. None of this, of course, repeated or reported in the mainstream media. You can find it by going to StoneZONE.com, folks. StoneZONE.com is where I publish my own writings as well as the most important stories of the day. Signing up there, by the way, is absolutely free. StoneZONE.com. I commend it to you. If you go there now, I have up a new story about Enrique Tarrio. This is the other big news item I want to touch on before we're finished here. Enrique Tarrio was pardoned and released. In his case, he was both indicted and convicted because an FBI informant sent a document to him on his Telegram channel, which he never even opened. The government claimed at trial that he edited the document, but in fact, he never even opened the document. The idea of indicting and convicting him of seditious conspiracy without ever allowing his attorneys to tell a jury that he never opened the document or that the document came from an FBI informant. Well, it is part and parcel of what happens in DC. I outlined the reasons why Enrique Tarrio deserved a pardon. You can go to StoneZONE.com right now. A box will pop up where you can subscribe, again, completely free. And you can read my analysis of what happened to him and their efforts to pressure him to testify against me, to pressure him to claim that I was somehow a kingpin in the January 6 events. Let me say it again for the record. Any claim that I knew in advance about, participated in, or condoned any action that was illegal on January 6th is categorically false. And the fake news clowns at ABC News particularly, but also at the New York Times, among others, have now been completely discredited. But you can never count on them to publish the truth. In fact, it's just the opposite. On the American left, it doesn't matter how disproved, discredited, debunked any of their false narratives are. If you just wait a few weeks, well, they'll come back around and recycle the same nonsense. Watch for it this week. We're out of time here, folks. I appreciate your bearing with us through a few audio problems, but I want you to pray for Jeremy Brown. He's still in captivity, despite the fact that he did nothing wrong on January 6th. His crime seems to be refusing to be a snitch, refusing to be an informant. Because of that, he was removed from his jail cell at 5:15 a.m. this morning and moved to a place that the government won't tell his family even where he is. You can remember to watch us here at the Stone Zone every day. We are at WorldViewTube at 4 o'clock, worldviewtube.com, pardon me, every day at 4 o'clock Central, 5 o'clock Eastern. Of course, if you miss us there, you can see us over on Rumble. Now, go to your cell phone now, download the Rumble app, and you can watch us there by going to rumble.com/Roger Stone. There you see it. Follow us there. Set yourself a notification so you never miss the show. Until tomorrow, well, I'm Roger Stone. This is the Stone Zone. God bless you and Godspeed.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone. Where's Roger Stone?